Welcome back to Movie Summary. Today we are diving into a film called Basic Instinct. In part 1, a woman killed a known artist and Nick, a detective, is investigating. The artist girlfriend is the main suspect as the killing happened exactly how it is described in her fiction book. After interrogating her, she passes the lie detector and is driven back home by Nick. During the drive, Margaret tells Nick she knows he killed 2 people in duty but was also negative at the lie detector. He brings her home as he realizes she has been making researches on him. She adds she is not wearing any underwear, then leaves. Minutes later, Nick joins his colleagues at the bar who feel something between them. They think they know each other but he repeats they don't. And tonight, after 3 months without alcohol, he gets a beer. At the moment, the police psychiatrist named Beth, an ex of Nick, walks in. A co-worker named Mark thinks he works too hard that is back drinking. Nick goes off on him as Beth stops him. Nick brings Beth to his place and aggressively makes love to her. After it, Beth reveals that Margaret was in some of the same classes of psychiatry with her. Beth starts to feel Nick is changing. Beth tells him he wasn't making love to her, and screams to him to leave. The next day, Nick is back at the HQ. The team finds another similar murder copying exactly what Margaret wrote in her book. Meanwhile, Margaret takes her expensive car out and Nick follows her. She drives very fast as Nick tries to keep up. Nick almost crashed into a bus and loses her. Lucky him, he finds her car parked in front of a house. He comes closer to that house. He checks the mail and sees the name Hazel Dobkins. He stays in front of that house the entire day. The night then arrives. Margaret is with a woman as she is leaving that house. She leaves and he follows her. She starts driving fast again and he loses her again. Nick then drives back to her house where the car is parked. He sneaks by the back and observes Margaret as she removes her clothes. Back in the office, Nick searches the name Hazel Dobkins. It says homicide 10 years ago. Gus then comes to him, revealing the other murder. The victim was Margaret Counselor. Unfortunately, she wasn't a suspect. Gus sees the name Hazel, and tells him that Hazel killed her entire family back in the days. The next morning, Nick goes to see Margaret. On the living room table, he finds more articles about his incident few years back involved 2 people killed. She says she is using him for her book and have questions for him as well. She wants to know how does it feel to kill someone. He answers, "You tell me." Nick says on his case it is as accidents. He then drops the name Professor Gold, the other victim. He also adds Hazel Dobkin. She finds it a coincidence victim, and Hazel she learned homicide from her for her book. Margaret then presses Nick's buttons about his past incident killing these 2 people, asking even how much drug he took that day. She then goes to kiss him but he removes her hand, but the tension between these 2 is strong. She adds for his wife the pressure was too much and that's why killed herself. He violently pushes her away as her friend Roxy comes in. Nick then leaves as Margaret kisses Roxy. An angry Nick bursts into Beth's office screaming who has access to his file. Under pressure, Beth reveals that another detective Nielsen had access to it. Nick then bursts into Nielsen's office, pushes him to the wall accusing him of giving her his file. The other detectives separate them. Nielsen screams at him, "You are out." As Nick is leaving, his partner Gus runs to him asking what's going on. He tells her she knows where he lives and everything about him. She is coming after him. That night Nick is at home drinking when Beth comes to see him. He wants her to leave and screams at her. Beth says she hates him and starts hitting him. He pushes to the floor. Nick tells how could she give him his file. She says she had to or they would get him fired as it was planned. She did it for him because she cares about him. Nick tells her to go away, which she does. Hours later, in the middle of the night, Nick gets a call. He then arrives at another crime scene. Nick comes closer to the scene and Nielsen dead. Everyone looks at Nick. The captain asks Nick to give him his gun. Nick is shocked that they think he may be the killer. Next thing you know, Nick is being interrogated by his co-workers. They ask him where was he last night, was he drinking? Beth confirms she saw Nick around 10 p.m. last night sober and lucid. Captain asks Nick straight, "Did you kill Nielsen?" He answers no. They want to put him on a psychiatric evaluation. After the interrogation, Nick catches up with Beth and thanks her. Beth advises Nick to get some rest and Nick apologizes for his behavior towards her last night. Back at his desk, Nick is clearing his stuff. Even though he is out, he still asks informations about Margaret's parents. His co-worker tells him the boat blew and gives more details. But the captain, hearing it, comes to them and says to stop it. Nick tells him that Margaret killed her parents. The captain says forget about her. He believes she knew how he will react, and the captain tells him, "She is screening with your head. Stay away from her." Nick drives home and sees Margaret sitting by his door. He tells her he likes her and invites her upstairs to have a drink. She is delighted he asked and comes in. They enter his apartment. He takes a nice pick to break the ice, but she wants to do it. By the way, the murder weapon in the previous case was a nice pick. Nick, who quit smoking, offers her a cigarette. He then asks how much she paid Nielsen for his files. She doesn't answer and says that's the guy you allegedly killed the other night. Both cheer to a drink. Margaret tells him she knows that he misses drugs. He straight asks her, where is this going? What does she want from him? She gives him a book she wrote, about a boy who kills his parents. Nick looks at her shocked as it is similar to her parents killed on a boat. Nick then walks her out and says he won't stop following her even if he is not a cop anymore. He asks her about her new book about a detective falling in love with the wrong girl. Margaret says, it's written itself. Before leaving, she tells him where she will be tonight. Gus, who comes in, is surprised to see Margaret. He asks why is she here. He tells her she wants to play. Then let's play. The night arrives, the club is booming and Nick is there looking for Margaret. He sees her dancing and follows her to the restroom. She gives him a look then continues dancing with her friend Roxy. Nick is there observing her as they kiss. Margaret then comes to dance to Nick, a jealous Roxy is watching them. They kiss with passion. They then make love at his place. During the lovemaking, she ties him to the bed like she did with the first victim and puts her hand under the pillow to grab the ice pick. Is this it for our dear Nick? Don't miss the epic conclusion of this twisted story in part 3 attached here. Thanks everyone for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and check our other movies summaries.